Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday Night Nativ. Um, Interesting night, I think. Um, I go back in my memory and I'm going to be thinking about things that I went through as I got started learning all of this stuff that I've been trying to share with other people. I learned a new toy and I decided I'm going to share it with you. Some of you, uh, you may want to use it. Some of you will be afraid of it. That's whatever. But a few months ago, I was introduced to the AI program. Now, the program's called Chat GPT, and it's an American program. It's made in the United States. It's all copyrighted here. And as a understanding, it's not complete yet, but it's fascinating, and it's American as opposed to the Chinese program called DeepSeek. And it increases my ability to find facts and escape history, or explore history, not escape it. You know, from the very beginning, when I first started this, I had to go to find something to get me started. So I found a book. It was called The Wisdom of the Hebrew Alphabet. And I used that along with, back then, a Humash, which is simply the first five books with a short commentary along for each chapter and several of the verses in it. And that helped me get started and gain some understanding. But the further along I went, the more I wanted to know. And so I got another book. And again, it's about the Hebrew alphabet, but you'll notice it's quite a bit thicker. And it also deals with the Kabbalistic understanding, and it's called The Hebrew Letters by Yitzhak Ginsburg, which helped a great deal, but that wasn't enough. I also wanted to understand all the ways that they look at a text and find differences. And so I found a book by Avraham Trugman, in which it's called The 70 Faces, and it deals with all of the different ways a text can be looked at and understood. And so I began to create more and more books. They filled my shelves. I have a set of the Talmud. I have a set of the Midrashic books. I have all the different sets, and I use them all. But there's sometimes when I can't remember where I went to. So this is becoming what I call an intermediate. But I also understand that I can't use it all the time, because one of the things that happens because of using it is the fact that you become dependent upon it. And by dependent, I mean you tend to lose track of your own learning and things become less clear. So I understand that it's got purposes and it's got possibilities, and it's, for me right now, it is helpful. You know, one of the things I did after I learned about chat was for create my titles. And again, the title for tonight's lesson is called Between Tahu and Tikkun, the Role of Evil in Divine Reality, which seems rather strange to talk about evil in terms of divine. But that's really what evil is. It's a divine product. So I began to look at it, and I began to look under the different sources, and I began to understand, because chat will give you a Christian version and it will give you a Hebrew version, depending on what you want. And it will ask you questions, and then you just simply respond. It's like you're talking to somebody else in the room, only you're typing it. So I began searching through that, and one of the things that came to my mind was I wanted to understand evil. Not that I didn't have an understanding of evil, but it began to talk to me about evil in two ways. First off, it talked about an active evil, which is um, maliciousness, and it's intentional. That was active. But there's a passive, which is neglect or apathy or ignorance. So in a Kabbalistic framework, evil is known as Sitra Achra, which means the other side. But evil can manifest itself as both something that is active, where you're fighting against it, and passive, where you just simply accept it and allow it to exist and allow it to continue. So as I'm going through this understanding, I went back in my mind and I said, well, where can I find evil? And so the first thing that the chat told me was, why don't you go back to Genesis chapter 2 or chapter 1, and I want you to look at verse number 2. So why don't you do that with me? We'll go back there. You may need to get your Bible, but I don't think so. Because, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But then the next thing is that the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Now, one creature is associated with darkness and evil, and that's the spirit, or the serpent, as we might also say, because you see, the serpent shows up also in that first chapter, in Genesis chapter 1, verses 20 and 21, where it says, and God said, let the lights swarm, or let the waters swarm, a swarming of living creatures, and let the fowl fly over the earth, across the expanses of the heavens. And God created, and this is the important part, Hatananim Hagolim, great sea monsters, and every living thing that crawls, with which the waters swarm according to their kind, and every winged fowl according to its kind. And God saw that it was all good. So the first evil is found in the second verse, and already the monster, the sea monsters, become part of what we learn as being part of this evil conspiracy. Now, the Latin word that we use for sea monsters, or can use, is the word crocodilius, or crocodiles. So in Greek, it's not called crocodilius, it's called Dinosophoria, or dinosaurs, terrible lizards. Now, the Midrash, they use the word, and the word they use is Leviathan. And it speaks not only of a single Leviathan, but a pair. Because remember, God created everything male and female, He created the pair. So later on, as we go through our texts and we begin to study, we begin to run into our characters, our sea monsters, our crocodiles, our leviathans. So in Exodus chapter 7, verse 10, our English translation says, Moses and Aaron came to the Pharaoh, and they did so as the Lord had commanded. Now Aaron cast his staff before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a snake, or a serpent. Now the word used here for snake or serpent is the word Leviathan, the same word we found in chapter 1, verse 20. Leviathan. Now, in my Babylonian Talmud, I went to my Talmud in the book called Bava Batra, which is dealing with gates, Bava Batra 74b. I want to read to you a portion. It begins by saying, and God created the great sea monsters. That's Genesis 1:21. Here in Babylonia, they interpreted this as a reference to the sea orcs. And Rabbi Yohanan said, this is Leviathan, the slant lizard, or slant serpent, and this Leviathan, the tortuous serpent. So there were two serpents, one male, one female. As it is stated, in the day of the Lord, with his swords and great and strong sword, will punish Leviathan, the slant serpent, and Leviathan, the tortuous serpent. Now that's found actually in Isaiah chapter 27, but it doesn't, 27 verse 1, but it doesn't have the understandings that go with it. The text goes on to say the Gematria provides a mnemonic for the following statements of Rav Yehuda, citing Rav, everything, time, Jordan. Rav Yehuda says that the Rav says everything that the Holy One, blessed be He, created in His world, He created male and female, even Leviathan, the slant serpent, again, new understanding, slant serpent, and Leviathan, the tortuous serpent. Now we're going to see them again later. One is a straight and one will be a curled or a curved serpent. but it's the same too. It depends on the language and the form of the word used. And it goes on to say, and if they coupled and produced offspring, they would have destroyed the entire world. What did the Holy One, blessed be he, do? He castrated the male and he killed the female, and he salted the female to preserve it for the banquet for the righteous in the future. Now, this is the banquet that comes at the end of this age. So this serpent was killed several thousand years ago in their understandings. And it is stated, and he will slay the serpent that is in the sea. Again, 27:1. And were the Holy One, blessed be he, not assisting Gabriel, he would not have been able to hunt it. Or as it says, only he who made him can use his sword to approach him. And that goes to the book of Job, chapter 40, verse 19. Again, the understanding is that the Leviathan is a serpent, only male left, but at the same point in time, he is unconquerable. Unless you had the Holy One with you, you could never do anything against it. It goes on to say, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Israel to Babylonia, he said to the Rabbi Yohanan, said, when the Leviathan is hungry, he produces breath from his mouth and thereby boils all the waters that are in the sea, depths of the sea. And as it states, he makes a deep boil like a pot. And if the Leviathan did not place its head in the Garden of Eden, no creature could withstand his foul smell. As it is stated, he makes the sea like a seething mixture. And the word here is merkah. And again, that's found in Job chapter 41, verse 23. And the term merkah is also used again to talk about smell in chapter 30, verse 25 in the book of Ezekiel. So our first creature that he talks to is the creature we call Leviathan. So evil can be found in a physical body, in a physical creature. And when he is thirsty, it goes on to say, when he is thirsty, many furrows in the sea, he makes many furrows in the sea. As it is stated, he makes a path to shine after him. Rabbi Hava Bar Yaakov says, after Leviathan drinks from the sea, the depths of the sea does not return to its normal condition until 70 years have passed. As it is stated, one who drinks the depths of the Hori. Now, the Hori indicates a person who has at least 70 years old. So this creature, basically, when it swallows the water, it takes 70 years to replace it. Now, Rabbah said that Rabbi Yohanan, in the future, the Holy One, blessed be he, will make a feast for the righteous from the flesh of the Leviathan. And as it says, the Habarim, which are the righteous, the sages, will make a feast of him. That's again Job chapter 40, verse 30. As you can see, there's places, bits and pieces within a text which deals with this. When I was first introduced to this whole idea, one of the understandings I had, it was the fact that in the book of Isaiah, it talks about the fact that the word of God is line by line, word by word, here a little, there a little, meaning that you can't find everything that relates to any one subject in one place. You have to go through text and several places, which makes the concordance very helpful, which makes the Google on my computer very active. Well, anyway, it goes on to say, and Kara, which means nothing other than a feast, it is stated, and he prepared va yakra for them a great feast, Kara, and they ate and drank. So there will be a great feast that's going to occur at the end of days, whenever that occurs, and we'll get to that at the end. Now, this verse is interpreted as referring to Torah scholars who listen to God's voice. And regarding the remainder of the story of the Leviathan itself will be divided because it's so large, and it'll be used or sold in the commercial markets in Jerusalem. And there will be a part of him that's actually going to form a screen or a net that will be on the walls of the temple, because the skin of this animal is so beautiful. Now, we learn in Hosea chapter 12, as for the merchants, the balance of deceit are in his hands. He loves to oppress. So the merchant, and again, it's Kenanan or Canaan or Canaanite, which is another word for a merchant. So a merchant can be a group of people, or it can be an occupation. Now we later learn, if we wish, to say that the proof is from here. We should look at Isaiah 23:8, which says, whose merchants are princes, whose traffickers, Kenana, are the honorable of the earth. And regarding the naming or the remaining part of the skin of the Leviathan, the Holy One, blessed be he, said, he spreads it on the walls of Jerusalem, and its glory radiates from one end of the world to the other. Again, we can read in Isaiah 60, which is again back to the end of days, where it says, the nations shall walk in your light, and the kings at the brightness of your rising. Regarding the future, this is where we get into some of these other things. Regarding the future and the glory of Jerusalem, the Gemara interprets Isaiah 54:12, and I will make your pinnacles like Kadahod, or glorious. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yachman said, two angels in heaven, Gabriel and Michael, disagree about the material that will be used to form the walls of Jerusalem. Some say that the dispute is between two Amorim, or between the east and the west. Others say it's the fact of what is Israel's walls. They had the two will begin to fight. One will say it's going to be made out of onyx and jasper, and another will say it's made out of skin. If we think of it as being made out of skin, we're back to the days of the tabernacle, because you see the tabernacle was linen cloth, but it looked and acted not like stone, but actually a material similar to that. Now, Leviathan appears again in the book of Psalms, Psalm 104, 24 to 26. Again, David would be the one that's talking. He talks about God, how he sports with the Leviathan, creating them, but then destroying his partner. It reads this way: how great are your works, O Lord! You have made them all with wisdom. The earth is full of your possessions. The sea is great and wide. There are creeping things and innumerable beasts, both small and large. There are ships go. You formed this Leviathan with which it to sport, was about killing the female and castrating the male. So when we talk about evil, or we think of evil, one of the things that we can think of, again, from chapter 1 in Genesis, was the idea of Leviathan, or the serpent. But the serpent appears again in the 3rd chapter, only this time the serpent doesn't have the name Leviathan. The serpent is called Nahash. And Nahash is the serpent that we run into when we discuss the story of the sin of Adam and Eve that started this whole thing. Leviathan and Nahash are often linked as just simply primordial-like beast, but the Kabbalistic text doesn't go there. It finds that if we're going to be talking about the Nahash, it goes to understanding that the Nahash was different than Leviathan in that it was not really an animal in the beginning. Why wasn't it an animal? Because we understand that this animal, or this creature, the Nahash, the serpent, had legs and arms that were taken away from him, and a curse that was laid upon him. Leviathan obviously has a portion or a part that's going to play in the tikkun, in the rectification of everything. But there's also going to be a recommendation or something similar to talk about the serpent or Nahash. When we look at the word Nahash or serpent, the Hebrew word that's used here is Hiviyah. Hiviyah means snake. Now, if I take the vowels out of that word, I actually have another word. The word is Hava. Hava and the snake have something in common. My wife loves snakes. All I hear when she goes to our website to find out how many snakes have been loose in the neighborhood or wherever they're at. But one of the things that the Midrash says is the serpent never approached Adam. He only approached Eve. So that's why I never worry about seeing snakes. It's only for my wife that they come around. But anyway, as I'm going through this, throughout history, the snake and the serpent well, they also have a prophetic and a symbolic place in a lot of cultures. A lot of cultures. Snakes have held a mysterious presence, and its ability to shed its skin have made it a potent symbol of what they call today transformation or renewal or wisdom. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the the serpent was revered as a divine and protective symbol. It was shaped like a cobra, and it was associated with an Egyptian goddess called Wadjed, who was a protector of the pharaoh in the land of Egypt. The Uraeus, a stylized upright form of the cobra, adorned the crown of Pharaoh. I don't know if you can remember back or if you have a picture in your mind of the Sphinx. On the top of the head of the Sphinx, you're going to find this very symbol. It's up there. Additionally, the serpent Apophis represented chaos and was believed to champion the sun god, Ra, according to his nightly journey through the underworld. So the serpent and the snake were really a major portion in that. But the ancient Greeks also had a serpent that was involved, and the serpent was a symbol of prophecy and a symbol of healing. The serpent entwined itself around a staff of Eucelius. Do you remember the medical staff? Has two snakes that are wrapped around it. Eucelius was represented as the god of medicine, which remains the symbol of medical practices even today. The serpent was also part of the Oracle of Delphi, one of the most significant prophetic sites in ancient Greece. It was believed to have been established by the Greek god called Apollo, who slew the great python snake or python serpent guarding the site. And the oracles or the priestess, known as Pythia, would enter into a trance to deliver prophecies, channeling the serpent's ancient wisdom. Other cultures, the Hindu culture, has serpents. They're called nagas and are considered powerful and divine beings associated with water, fertility, protection. They are often depicted as guardians of treasures and are believed to reside in the netherworld. A great serpent, Ananta, is depicted as the eternal cosmic serpent upon whom Lord Vishnu rests. Serpents also play a role in the prophetic visions and are considered messengers of the gods, providing guidance and wisdom to devotees. Serpents appear in the Americas. We can find it in the mythologies of many American cultures, the Aztecs, the Mayas. The feathered serpent called Quetzalcoatl was revered as the god of the wind and the air, and learning of the Aztec culture was something that was associated also with prophecy. creation, renewal. The Mayans had a Tukulkan, another feathered serpent, who was believed to bring balance and order to the world, not to be undone. The first Americans, or the first country to cross the Atlantic Ocean to come here, were the Northmen, the Vikings. They had a serpent. It was also known as Midgard, the serpent. It played a crucial role in the prophecies that were understood back then. The colossal serpent, which encircles the world, is fated to battle the god of thunder, Thor, during a final confrontation. So we get a battle between God and a serpent, which takes us back to the chapter 3 of Genesis, where the biting of the heel and that story, all of the ideas of God back then. There's various cultural interpretations that illustrate the profound and multifaceted symbolism of the serpent across different civilizations, from the protector to the healer to the one who has chaos, provides chaos or transformation. Serpents have been involved in the human quest for understanding. So when the Nahash, the serpent in Eden, depending on your interpretation, the serpent was actively deceiving Eve and now passively allowing humanity to fall by introducing doubt and separation from becoming a part of man's world, or allowed it to become a part of man's world. The Nahash then is deeply complex in the Kabbalistic understanding, not so in Christianity. It's the role in the Garden of Eden story goes beyond the mere talking of a snake. I feel certain that you and all are familiar with this story of Eve's temptation to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The serpent is described as more arum, cunning, than any other beast. And after the sin, God curses it to crawl on its belly in the dust. But that made me think about about snakes in period. The text left me with many questions after why is the Nahash so intelligent? Why was it the beast? How is it able to speak? What exactly was its role? What was it made to be a deceiver, or was it to be an agent of something greater? Now, the Talmud in Sanhedrin 29a and the Midrashim suggests that the Nahash was originally an upright, powerful being, probably humanoid, maybe angelic in some way, shape, or form. Some Midrashim claim that it was jealous of Adam and sought to take Eve away from him. Another view is that it was an ambient body, or it was just the embodiment of Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. It was just simply a force, or for free will, or to provide free will. Kabbalistically, the Nahash represents temptation and knowledge, hidden wisdom. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, it's the force that challenges us. Ego, separation, it's the image of self apart from God. And finally, it's the potential for revenge, for redemption. The serpent can be both poison or it can be a cure. In Kabbalah, the Nahash is also called the Sitra Achra, the other side. It's the domain of impurity. It's the klipot. It's the husks. It contains, or it conceals the divine light. It covers it over. Its actions in Eden are seen as initiating what would be later called the shattering of vessels, something that would leave. I'll cover it some other time. But it is said to have caused divine sparks to fall into the material world. Biblically, the serpent plays two roles. The first role, it's the tempting serpent. It's the evil side of it. The Nahash, or the Leviathan, is the source of spiritual exile. causing Adam and Eve to fall from divine consciousness into fragments. It introduces doubt, duality, ego, which has separated humanity from the divine. It's also got a redemptive side, a healing side. Because you remember in Numbers 21, Moses lifts up a copper serpent that he's made, a Nahash Nahoshet, to heal those bitten by snakes. This hints at a deeper truth. The Nahash is not just a force of evil, but paradoxical force that can be used for healing. You remember the looking up, able to change, able to bring life back to a body. The Zohar teaches that at the end of days, the power of the Nahash will be rectified, turning from destruction to redemption. Now, we understand that in every generation, there is the potential for a Messiah. One of my favorite modern day rabbis is Rabbi Ephraim Palvanov, who is in, he was in Ontario. I think he's still there. If the people, this is his quote, if the people merit it and the conditions are right, the Messiah of that generation will manifest. This is true. This was true for King Hezekiah, who came very close to being the Messiah. Samson was also had the potential to become Mashiach in his generation. But again, it's back down to the very next. There's a hidden story that I want to give you. In the blessing of Dan, way back in Genesis and Exodus, or Genesis and Deuteronomy, Dan is blessed by both Jacob and Moses. Now, there's some explicit language regarding salvation, which is precisely dealing with what I would call Mashiach or Gila, redemption. Rabbi Pelanov said, we see the Midrash, Yalkut Shimone 120 or 160, that Mashiach has a lineage from Judah on his father's side, but from his mother, Mashiach is descended from Dan. So the Jewish people understand that they're looking for not only a son who has a father who is a Judite, but also has a mother who is a Danite. Now, he adds that in Genesis, when we read of the 70 names or the 70 members of Jacob's family that came down to Egypt, the only progeny of Dan is Cushin, an exact anagram. If you take the letters, the Hebrew letters from this word, Hushim, it's a het, shin, yud, mem. It's an exact anagram for Mashiach, which is mem, shin, yud, het. Just a reverse. Rabbi Palvanov believes that according to some opinions, David's mother, Netzavet, Bat Adiel, was really a woman from the tribe of Dan. So similarly, there are many places in the Bible where we see partnerships between Dan and Judah. Now, while Jacob blesses Judah as a lion cub, Moses blesses Dan as a lion cub. The tabernacle was built by Bezalel, who was from the tribe of Judah, and Oliad was from the tribe of Dan. This is because Judah was considered the most illustrious of the tribes, and Dan was considered the lowliest of the tribes. And yet it comes to serving God that we are all equal. In the Exodus, Judah led the way. Dan was the last tribe. He added, Solomon from the tribe of Judah partnered with Hiram, the Phoenician king, who, according to the Midrash, whose mother was also from the tribe of Dan. Dan was tasked with being the lost and found man. He traveled at the end, picking up the stragglers that were left behind from the other tribes. This brought them tremendous merit in the eyes of God. And on a mystical level, Dan's role in what he believes to be the symbolic understanding of the mission of the Jews is finding and restoring the lost sparks of creation to rectify what's going on. So the genealogy of Messiah seems to imply that we're going to find two characters, Dan and Judah, but we're also going to find for ourselves the Mashiach. Now, Adam can be seen as an anagram, or an acronym, I should say. Adam, David, Messiah. Rabbi Palvanov explains these three personalities encapsulate all human history. The soul of Mashiach was contained within Adam, who foresaw that David, the progenitor of Messiah, would be stillborn. So Adam gave 70 years of his life to David, who lived exactly 70 years, while Adam lived another 930 years, though he should have lived precisely 1,000 years. But according to Kabbalah, David was precisely in the middle of the human history. Rabbi Palvanov said, from Adam to David is precisely the same amount of time as it is between now, David, and today. We are literally in the time of the Mashiach right now. Soon the whole role that evil has played in human history is just going to be no more. It's going to come to an end. There's probably more I can say that I can't think of right now, but I want to stop at that point. Understand, evil is not totally godless. Evil has a part to play in bringing us back to God. But again, we have to figure out where God is and who God is. That's when you use all your tools. That's when you use your books, your computer, your thoughts, your friends, anything that can help you get closer to understanding where we are in time. 40 minutes, that's enough. I think I covered new stuff that you haven't heard before. Anybody have any thoughts, any questions, any concerns?